In this lesson, we're going to be looking at surface area to volume ratio, and we're going to be looking at why it's important in human biology and what it means for humans. These are the key words for your lesson today, and these are your learning objectives. Now, just to let you know, you should have, or you should be reading pages 41 to 42 of your textbook before you start this lesson. Alright, so we're going to be looking at surface area to start off with. Now we know that to calculate surface area, it's simply the length times the breadth of a surface. Now for cubes, the length and the breadth are going to be the exact same. So therefore, the length times the breadth of this one surface is going to be 4 times 4. However, because this is a cube with 6 sides, we have to multiply that by 6. You also need to calculate the surface area of these cubes. Now this is the same cube, only chopped up, and so therefore we have 8 smaller cubes. See if you can calculate the total surface areas for both of these. So hopefully you got 96 cubic centimeters for the larger cube and 192 cubic centimeters for the smaller cubes. Remember, we're looking at total surface area. Now we're going to be looking at volume, and just to remind you, the volume calculation is the length times the breadth, and also this time times the width. So for a cube, all these dimensions are the exact same. Now, for this one larger cube, it's simply length times breadth times width, and that gives us a total of 64 cubic centimeters. When we want to find the total volume here, it's the volume of 1 cube times by 8. So we can see here that the volume of 1 cube is 8 cubic centimeters, and 8 cubes is 8 times 8, which is 64 cubic centimeters. Now, when we look at the surface area to volume ratio, we know for this cube the total surface area is 96 square centimeters, and the volume we just calculated is 64. So if we find the simplest ratio, it works out to be 1 to 5. So that means for every 1 square centimeter of surface area, we have 5 cubic centimeters of volume. Now, if we look at our smaller cubes, again, we understand that the surface area, total surface area, is 192 square centimeters, and the volume is 64 cubic centimeters. If we find that ratio, we see that the numbers are flipped, and the larger number is at the front, so there is more surface than volume inside. Now, this is important to note. So what we are saying here is the surface area of this cube is much larger. Okay? And this can be a problem. So, what we're saying is that the surface area is smaller, than the volume inside, so 1 to 5. And that can be a problem. Now we know that the inside of the cell requires nutrients, and at the same time it produces and needs to excrete metabolic waste. So if you've got a larger volume inside than surface area for those things to diffuse through, that creates an issue. So the surface area is not big enough to cope with the massive volume of metabolic wastes that are building up. Now, how the human body gets around this is that we aren't just made up of one giant cell. We are multicellular, and we've already established that we are made of billions of cells. And all those cells work together to perform functions. So, why is this a good thing for us? Well, cells are very small. So just like those smaller cubes, they have a large surface area. So there's lots more surfaces than the volume inside. And what this means is that diffusion will occur at a faster rate, and metabolic waste can leave at a faster rate. So we can get nutrients into our body quicker, and we can get rid of those wastes faster also. So again, let's look at this. Let's just imagine this cube is representing a cell. A large surface area to volume ratio isn't a great thing for human cells. So cell size in humans is restricted to an upper limit. The reason for that, as we've already said, is that large cells have got less surface area compared to smaller cells. Because remember, this one large volume only has 6 sides, whereas the same volume here has many, many more sides, which means more surfaces for diffusion to take place. Okay, so what we're saying then is that large cells produce more waste, but they have less surface area to get rid of that waste. So what that means is that this buildup of metabolic waste inside the cell could potentially kill it. And that's definitely not something you want in your body, because your body cells make up your tissues, your organ systems, and essentially you. And if you can't get enough nutrients into your body, then that's a problem. So what we are saying here is that large cells get proportionally less nutrients and can, in colloquial terms, starve to death. So the main point of what we're looking at here is that a large cell has less surfaces with the same volume. So it has a low surface area to volume ratio compared to the same volume chopped up into much smaller cells. Now, here we're looking at how the human body adapts to that. So there's a couple of examples to show you. So inside our lungs, which are our main gas exchange organs, we have got many, many, many tiny little air sacs called alveoli, and each one presents a large surface area to volume ratio, which means that because they have this rounded shape, they have a large surface area but a small volume, so gases can exchange in and out very, very quickly. Here we are looking at the blood vessels in a human body. This is showing that they are there's lots of them. There's many very small blood vessels that will interface with different tissues and cells of the body. So therefore also a large surface area to volume ratio. And finally, this is actually an image of the inside of your small intestine. Now these finger-like projections that you can see here, these are called villi. So instead of the inside of your gut wall being smooth, it's folded up, kind of concertinaing into these villi to present a much larger surface area so that we can absorb nutrients from digested food quicker. All right, so back to the baby. Why did I show you a picture of the baby? Well, babies, well, we like to keep them warm in winter. We like to wrap them up, bundle them up. And the reason for that is because they have a very large surface area compared to a very small volume. And therefore, heat can escape off those surfaces really quickly, and they are unable to regulate their body temperature. And this is a great opportunity to dress them up in warm clothes and silly hats. Okay, so key points that I want you to take away from this lesson. Diffusion is really effective over small distances. Okay, so it works really, really well with small cells rather than bigger cells. Diffusion is not very efficient when it comes to large distances. So this large surface area means that it's going to take longer for this molecule to diffuse in or out. So therefore, having a small surface area to volume ratio means that materials will diffuse much faster. There are other factors that affect the rate of diffusion. This is something that you should already know, but we're just going to review it here. Increasing temperature will increase the rate of diffusion because you are providing more kinetic energy for molecules to move at a faster rate. Having a larger surface area means that there's more surfaces for diffusion to occur in. Having a steeper concentration gradient, we know, will increase the rate of diffusion. Having smaller particle sizes means that they will go much faster. And of course, the medium that diffusion occurs in. So we know that solids will mean that the slowest rate of diffusion, liquids will go faster, but gases are the fastest because those molecules are freer flowing. Here's a little infographic just to help you remember all that information. It's something that you might want to print out and keep for yourself. This is just a really easy visual to help you understand the factors that affect diffusion and why surface area to volume ratio is important. Okay, here is a video that I'm going to play a little bit of for you, but I would like you to watch it at half speed by yourself. This is showing 3 different agar cubes, and each cube is made of agar gel, and it has a solution of phenolphthalein in it, which is that pink stuff. Now, when each of these cubes is placed in acid, the phenolphthalein reacts with the acid as the acid diffuses into the cube, and it turns that pink color clear. So we're just going to watch what happens. Okay, so when you're watching that video, it was really obvious that the smallest cube had the fastest rate of diffusion, the medium one was next, and then the large cube, well, you didn't really get much happening here, just a little bit around the edges. So again, what we're talking about here is surface area to volume ratio. Now, when we calculate ratios, it's easier for us to compare them, and we can see that even though each of these cubes have 6 sides, the total surface area of the smaller cube with respect to the volume inside is greater. Okay, so this means there is more surface compared to the volume inside that cube, which means that diffusion will happen faster. And that's really important because this is a really good visual to show us what goes on inside a cell in your body. Okay, so that's the end of the lesson. I'd like you to complete page 21 of your class booklet, and please make sure your booklet is fully completed up to page 32 for the next lesson.